Good afternoon and welcome to my session on how you can apply the 80-20 rule to any business, including yours, and you could double your profits in as little as, well, actually in as little as 90 days, but certainly in as little as 180 days. And the whole process is very logical. There's a certain order you need to do things. And what I'm going to try and do is talk you through that process, explain all the steps, and you'll see that actually this could work for you. So the starting point here is your mindset. And now, as I'm sure you've heard before, and as everybody knows, if you've got absolute clarity as to what you want, and you know what your values are, and you know what your vision is, and you can see exactly where you want to be, then you're far more likely to get there than if you're not sure. So absolute clarity is the starting point. And once you've got absolute clarity as to where you want to be with yourself and with your business, actually, you can then develop your goals and your plans. Goals. So not many people even get this far, actually, but your goals need to be written. They need to be personal and business related and finance related and lifestyle related, etc. But basically, your business, you need business goals. And you need a mixture. You need short-term ones, medium-term ones, long-term ones, and they need to be in writing. And the more specifically that you can write out these goals, and the more specifically that you can write out plans to achieve these goals, the far more likely it is that you will achieve them. Now, there's certain rules for goals, so they should be specific, they should be time-based, they should be personal to you, and they should be in the first person, and they should be in the present tense. So I have a business that generates £5 million per year would be an example. Some of them should be what are called SMART goals, which basically means they're achievable and realistic. But I think you should also have at least one goal probably in every major area, which is extremely ambitious. So, wouldn't be constrained by being achievable and realistic, because that tends to downplay them. And I think it was Einstein who said, if you aim for the stars, you might just hit the ceiling. So you do want some goals that are so challenging, that they are huge goals, but you do want goals that are also SMART, which is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. The goals have to be written, and they have to be rewritten regularly and reviewed. So you've got your mindset, which is absolute clarity is where you want to be, and you've written out your goals, and you've written out plans to achieve those goals. And when you've done that, you then need to allocate time to actually work on achieving those goals. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. First of all, they haven't got absolute clarity as to what they want to achieve. And even if they haven't written it out in the form of goals and plans. And even if they've done that, they then don't allocate time to do it. And because you don't allocate time to do it, you tend to get busy doing all the other day-to-day activities. Now, I've put here Q2. What this stands for is quadrant 2. Which in Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, quadrant 2 is things that are very important, but they haven't actually got a specific deadline. They haven't got to be done today. And where a lot of people go wrong is they'll have a to-do list of all the things they need to do, and they'll maybe go through it in priority order, which is good. But unless you find time to actually do all the things that you haven't got to do today, they won't get done. And the only way you'll find that time is to diarise them. So you need to have regular time set aside to do these things, which are all part of this 80-20 rule. So it's the 20% that gives you the 80% of your results. So they need to be in the diary first. It's often referred to as the big rocks that go into a jar first, which then means you can fit the stones and the sand in. Whereas if you put the stones and the sand in first, you never get time to put the big rocks in. So all of these things on here would fall into time management. Quadrant 2 needs to be in the diary, time set aside. Maybe an hour a day, maybe in 90 minutes a day, some people recommend, but certainly time set aside. Otherwise, you get busy being busy and you never actually do these things. So when you've set this time aside to achieve your goals, your starting point here, the fourth thing, is your market dominating position. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, your market dominating position is why would people buy from you rather than your competitors, other than on grounds of price? And the only reason they will buy from you other than on grounds of price is if you can stand out from the competition in terms of value and in terms of how you explain your value. So it could be that you have, better products, better service in a specific way. It needs to be specific. Or it could just be that you're better at explaining exactly what you do. But there must be some reason why people will buy from you other than on price, because if it's just on price, then basically that's the road to nowhere. So we need to develop this market dominating position. Now, you need to set time aside in your diary to work on your business to even get this far. So if you've got the time, then the market dominating position is the starting point. Now, this market dominating position should be focused on your ideal customer or client. So you need to identify who is your ideal customer or client. You need to work out their demographics, which is basically where they live, what their age is, whether they're married or single, how much they earn, what sort of job they do, all the sort of those sort of facts. But you also need to identify what motivates them to buy. Now, generally, there's two things that will motivate someone to buy. It's either a problem or an issue or a concern they've got that they need a solution to, or it's something they're trying to gain or achieve. And it's been proven that 70% of the time it's an issue, problem, or concern, and 30% of the time it's a positive, something they're trying to gain. So obviously your market dominating position should try and address both, or in each particular market segment it should identify which one it is and address that. But the thing about the issue, problem, or concern is, first of all, it's twice as likely that that will be the motivating factor. And secondly, if someone's got an issue, problem, or concern, they've got an incentive to solve it now. So there's a time constraint, so they're more likely to act. Whereas if it's something that's positive that they're trying to gain, then there's a temptation to sort of put it off and jam tomorrow, and there's not so much of an urgent rush. So the issue, problem, or concern is the thing to identify. And once you've identified that, your market dominating position should be value and a proposition that solves that problem for them. So then we move on to, well, how do we do that? Well, we do that by focusing now, in terms of growing our business, on what we call the 5-step profit formula. Now, the 5-step profit formula basically says there are 5 things in your business that determine how much profit you make. And very few people narrow it down as precisely as this, and very few people measure it. And that's the whole point. If you identify it and you measure it, you're more likely to improve them than if you don't. In fact, it's been proved that if you identify and measure them, you will improve them just by doing that. So the way this works is, if you know how many leads you generate, and this could be per branch, per department, per product area, per marketing initiative, but if you know how many leads you generate in a week, a month, a year, and then you know what percentage you convert, that will tell you how many customers you've got. If you then know how often they buy, so the number of transactions a year, and how much they spend each time, which is the average price, that will tell you your turnover. And then if you know your gross margin, that will give you your gross profit. And then if you take off your fixed overheads, you would have your net profit. So the very act of identifying and measuring these variables and then working on them will in itself improve your profitability. But the staggering thing is that all you need to do once you've identified these variables is just make small weekly 1% improvements in them. And if you just made a 1% a week improvement in each of them, which you're devoting time in your diary to working on, because you've set an hour a day aside to do this, you've only got to do 1% a week for these, and you end up doubling your profits, not in 180 days, but actually in 90 days. So it's extremely feasible. It's just that what stops people doing it is they never get far enough across here to set time aside in the diary to actually work on these 5-step profit formula items. So we've got our mindset right. We've identified with absolute clarity where we want to be. We've drawn up our goals and plans, and we've got a variety of short-term, medium, long-term, and they're specific, and they're first person, and they're positive, and they're time-based. We've set time aside in our diary beforehand to actually do these things rather than get distracted by the busy day-to-day activity of running our business. We've developed our market dominating proposition, which is identifying what our ideal client, who our ideal client is, and what will motivate them to buy. We're measuring these 5 key variables in the 5-step profit formula, and we're aiming to make just small weekly improvements in them. And if we do that, we'll double our profits in 180 days. Well, 90 days actually, if it was 1% a week. Now, how will we do that? We'll do it by focusing on what we call strategic marketing. So what is strategic marketing? Well, strategic marketing effectively says that at any given time, if you took all of the possible prospects for your product or service, only 1 to 3% of them are now buyers, and 97% plus of them are possible future buyers. And the way it works is 30% will never buy, but the trouble is you don't know which 30% that is at the start. And 70%, 60-70% of them will eventually buy, but not now. And this is called the buyer's journey. And what happens is people become aware of your product or service, and then they have to work out whether they want to buy it or not. And in order to do that, they'll need information, and they go along a decision-making journey. So what happens is they will need to find out what the attractions and the benefits are of what you're selling. Then they'll have objections such as it's expensive, it disrupts what I've already got, it's inconvenient, it doesn't really fit in with the other things we do. There'll be all sorts of objections, and they need to convince themselves that the benefits outweigh the objections before they then move on to saying, do you know what, I think I will buy this, but now who shall I buy from? And then they need information which helps them make the decision as to who the vendor is, who they're going to buy from. And all of this journey along here, what they're actually looking for is information. And I'm going to come back to that because that's the final point. But strategic marketing says that what you do is you provide them with information along the buyer's journey to help them make their decision as to whether they want to buy this product or service or not. And then when they have made that decision, who are they going to buy it from? The only way you can do this, though, is you need to get their details so that you can provide them with information. And the way you do that is you then follow what's called the marketing or conversion equation. And what this says is that whatever it is that you use to generate leads, so whether it's going to networking events, doing presentations, producing flyers, adverts, sales letters, speaking, whatever it is you do, you have to follow this marketing equation, conversion equation. Because what you do is you have to highlight initially what motivates your prospect to buy. And that will generally be an issue, a problem, or a concern. So the first thing you say or see on whatever's written, which would be the headline, is you've got this problem that we know about and you haven't got a solution to it. And that will capture the prospect's interest and make them perk up and listen to what you're saying. You then need to engage with them to keep their attention. And the way you do that is you say, and we know you've got this problem or issue, and we can offer you a solution. I can offer you a solution. That will then make them want to listen as to how you can solve this issue or problem or concern that they've got. And then you explain how, which is called educate. And this involves explaining what it is that you've got and how it works and how it solves their problem and how it solved it for other people. And this is all the proof that other people have used it, and then they're saying how good it is and it solved the problem for them. And if it works for them, it'll work for you. So that's where you get all the stuff like testimonials, social proof, and basically features and benefits and how it all works. So this is called the body copy, I suppose. And if it's talking or if you're presenting, these are, this is the bit that you explain. So you're explaining, this is the problem, this is the solution, this is how it works, and this is proof that it works. And when you've done all that, you then have to engage with them further into this buyer's journey. And you do that by making them a low risk offer. And you don't want to scare them off because they're not now buyers. So offering to sell them something will scare them off, the fight or flight response in the brain. But offering them what they want won't scare them off. And what do they want? They want information. And the information they want is benefits and ideas as to why they might want or use this product or service, information to explain why their fears and objections to it are groundless, and then further information eventually as to who they would buy from. So you could offer them something like an ideas guide, a checklist, a technical explanation of certain terms and legislation, all sorts of things. But basically, it's got to be risk-free. Now, if they're now buyers, it might be, a risk-free, buy one, get one free, or try me for 90 days or something like that. But if in the vast majority of cases they're not now buyers, then some sort of information pack. And what you then do is, when you've engaged with them and given them this piece of information initially, you then engage with them in what's called a drip campaign, which means that you send them regular pieces of information to help them along the buyer's journey. And what you would do is you would take the initial information pack or checklist or guide or ideas guide, whatever it was, and you would take bits out of it and explain in more detail on a periodic basis these particular points, and you give them a flow of information. And what you're doing is you're engaging with them and nurturing them as prospects along the buyer's journey. And the reason you do that is because you've probably seen this before, 80% of buyers take at least 5 to 8 positive contacts before they're ready to buy. And 80% of sellers and selling companies stop making contact and give up after 2, maybe 3, but 2 or less contacts. So what it means is that by the time 80% of buyers are ready to buy, 80% of sellers have given up and only 20% are left, which, guess what? It's the 80-20 rule again. So going back to here, if you follow this process through, you'll start to stand out from your competitors. So then what happens is you're in a marketplace. Now, let's say you're in a marketplace where there's a 10 million market, 10 million pounds worth of market. There's five companies in it, just to keep it simple, and you're one of them. Well, the starting point before you do all this and before anyone else does all this is that you're all seen as being the same. And because you're all seen as being the same, you're probably competing on price, and your prices are all very similar. And you're all getting a roughly equal share of the market. So you're all getting £2 million worth each of business. But you start to work on this, and people start to notice that you've got, you've identified your ideal client better. So you're more seen as an expert or a specialist. You've got a market dominating position. So you're seen as offering better value. You're more efficient because you're focusing on this 5-step profit formula. You're marketing it better because you're following the conversion equation, so you're getting your message across better. You're nurturing your prospects better, so you're far more likely to engage with a far higher proportion of prospects. And all of these things start to make you appear more, well, better than the marketplace, than the competitors. And what starts to happen is it's this thing called the tipping point. What starts to happen is people notice. Now, if you're 5% better than the rest, that doesn't mean you get 5% more business than the rest, because what it means is that people can see that you're clearly better than the rest. So a lot of those people are going to come to you rather than the others. It's not just going to be 5%. It's called a non-linear relationship. And what starts to happen is you capture more and more market share, and it becomes a virtuous circle. We're doing better anyway. You can do even better and even better, and it becomes cumulative. And eventually what happens is you're the one capturing the 80% of the market. Now, obviously 80% is not precise, it might be 70, but you know what I mean. It's a disproportionate share of the market. And you're the one getting 80%, and the others are the ones sharing 20% between them. So what does that mean? Well, in a 10 million market, what that means is you're getting 8 million now instead of what was 2 million. And all the others are sharing, instead of 2 million each, they're sharing 2 million between them. So they're now only getting 500,000 each. So you've basically obliterated the competition. It's not going to happen overnight, but it can happen, in not that long a time if you follow this process. And the thing is, you then say to yourself, right, well, so that's what I need to do. And at the moment, maybe I'm too busy running my business and being busy in my business to do this. But if you don't do it and one of them does it, then you'll be one of the ones stuck here, on the 500,000, and one of your competitors will be over here being the one that's got 80% of the market and that's got 8 million. So this is a really, really important concept. And this is the logical order to follow to implement the 80-20 rule. And if you follow this process and you devote time aside in your diary to work on your business to do this, then you'll be the person dominating the market. You'll be the 20% of the market getting the 80% of the business, and you'll have far more spare time because you'll be concentrating on the 20% of things in your business that get you 80% of your results. And that is how the 80-20 rule works for any business, including yours. And that's how, if you follow the 80-20 rule, you can double your profits. Here, 1% a week on these 5 key variables means you would actually double your profits in 90 days. So I'm saying you could easily do this in 180 days, and really any business can do it. You have to apply these concepts. It's not that easy to work out these figures, and certain businesses it's more difficult than others. But as a concept, it works for any business, and therefore, just following this process and applying it to your business, you will double your profits in 180 days. So I hope you found that informative. If you want any further information, if you go to my website, there's loads of reports and resources giving you more information on all of these ideas. So it's exponentialgrowthforyou.com. So exponential is, as you would spell it, EXPONENTIALGROWTH, and then it's u.com. So that's Bernard Keeby. I hope you found that useful. If you did like it, share it, like it, recommend it, all those sort of things. And I'll come back and go into more depth in some of these areas on future occasions. But basically, that is the process to follow. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you found that helpful and useful. Cheers.